Hello and welcome to Bonus Bookworms. It's the show where we read books and talk about those books that we have not discussed previously. I'm your host Alex,
And I'm Joe.
and boy oh boy, we got a episode for you, a bonus episode for you. And I like to start with the question, how are you, Joe?
I'm doing well, Alex. How are you?
Doing pretty good, pretty good. I like this one. This is the first book that you have chosen for bonus books. I have to say, you're coming out almost as strong as I did.
I'd say about a million times stronger. Except that yours was a 0, so even a million times wouldn't, should still come out to 0. So yes, I guess almost the same, but
Sick burn. All right.
still having nightmares about that episode, Alex.
Yeah.
A month later, aka a day later, or 2 days later.
Yeah. So we're stacking episodes right now, getting ahead of the game. So we just recorded the stuffed bonus episode 2 days ago, which you guys heard a month ago. So now you are listening a month later to something that we recorded 2 days after recording the episode that we previously did. So yes, this is the second bonus episode. We haven't done the second episode yet. So we're filming
we're doing this a little out of order here.
Oh yeah, it's all this huge Inception mind game. You gotta get up pretty early to keep up with us.
Yeah, so I picked this book because it was a response to another bonus book we covered from, I believe it was season 1, Alex. Was it season 1?
Tom Felton?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was season 1.
Yeah, so we were going to do this last season, but it never worked out. Alex couldn't get his poop in a group, pretty much. So we kept putting it off. So I figured we'd get it early this season. But as I said, this was a response to when we read Tom Felton's memoir.
It's Beyond the Wand.
Beyond the Wand. I felt that there had to be a better actor memoir that we could read that would be a better example of how to do a good memoir.
Yeah, and you chose an actor who's more renowned with writing memoirs. He's put out about one a decade for past 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I think he's either just put out a fourth one or about to put out a fourth one, I think.
Yeah, he put out a fourth one in 2025 that was mostly about his filming of his most famous movies. Just like behind-the-scenes stories and anecdotes.
Yeah, but this was his third one.
Yes.
And the book we read, No Time Like the Future, by Michael J. Fox. One of my favorite actors as a kid, Alex. I don't know about you, but watching Back to the Future, I basically started consuming everything he did. Like even as a kid watching Spin City and not really understanding what's going on or any of that because it's all over my head, but because he was such a good actor, just laughing along with those laugh tracks as hard as I could because his physical comedy was just spot on.
Yeah, he's a beloved actor. He's probably one of the most bankable stars from the 80s. He had a hit sitcom in the 80s, a hit sitcom in the 90s. Back to the Future is generally considered one of the best movies of that decade, one of the best movies of all time.
I was going to say, it's one of the best movies of all time. and numbers 2 and 3 aren't far behind it. Like they were, it's not like most sequels where you get diminishing returns. Even though the third one, which was kind of out there, was like, yeah, no, this has got some really poignant stuff going on.
Yeah, there's no bad movies in that trilogy. It's great.
Yeah, and he's really hasn't ever really done a bad movie. I don't think. I mean,
I won't go that far, but yeah, he's.
Well, yeah, I'm saying that there's movies that were just meh, but nothing that was like downright unwatchable.
That's true, and like he's his last starring role was in 1996 with The Frighteners. Which was like the last movie Peter Jackson did before he did Lord of the Rings. So a big movie to go out on, but it's kind of crazy. Like that was his last starring role as an A-list celebrity, and he's still this beloved person today. It's a testament to his star power.
Oh yeah, and just what he's done with his star power, especially because when he went out with Parkinson's, where he realized he couldn't really do leading roles anymore, he put full effort into helping people with his disease and went full on into the philanthropy movement, which I mean, a lot of people like him would probably do, but none as successful and with as much humility as he puts in to it. So
Yeah, he's been the face of the Michael J. Fox, or the Fox, not the Michael J. Fox, the Fox Foundation, which is a charity fights Parkinson's disease, and is in the decades since he founded it, they've raised $2.5 billion, which is huge, and being in the public eye with Parkinson's is no joke. Like the like going into this book, like the amount of things he has to do just to slow, like he's never like getting ahead of this degenerative disease. He's everything he's doing is just trying to slow the degeneration. So like he got diagnosed in 1991 and he's been fighting it now for over like 35 years.
And it's a very rare for someone his age to have gotten it. It's not a common thing for young people to get.
Yeah, he was 29 when he got his diagnosis.
Yeah.
Which means he started onsetting even before then, because he's had like muscle pain and like a tremor in his finger that he couldn't control. And like they're like, yeah, you got probably about 10 more years of acting steadily before like you have to make a change. And yeah, he made it to 2001 or so before he had to leave Spin City.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's definitely a testament to what he was able to do, and he had hit it for a long time. Now, so this is his third memoir. So having read memoirs by other people I enjoy, once that first memoir is always easy to write, because typically when you start writing a memoir, especially these actors, they're usually in their 30s or 40s when they write them. So they got their whole childhood that they can backfill. They got their early career, which is always big. They can they talk about all their influences. You got all these, what made them big to be worthy of writing a memoir. And then they usually wait a decade and they're like, yeah, let's cash in on another memoir. But now they only, instead of the 20, 30, 40 years, they only got 10 years, and they've probably already gone past their peak performance. They run out of stories. They can't go back to a lot of the old material to expand on, because people aren't going to be interested, because you got to write something different. So going into this knowing it was going to be a memoir later, it's like, okay, who knows what we're actually going to get into, because as a good memoir is going to have, it's going to have some sort of narrative that they're trying to tell. And Michael J. Fox would have already told the Parkinson's narrative and his acting narrative. So it was like, okay, where is he going to go with this?
Yeah, and that's what separates a memoir from an autobiography. Is like memoirs tend to have a more limited scope, and everything you tell is within that scope or shaped to a certain narrative. So he bases this off of this one, not No Time Like the Future, on a couple of major medical procedures that he had,
and is shaking in his faith of optimism, because
yes,
he's a very optimistic person. And he's realizing that that's not going to get him through his new disabilities that are forming from just aging with a degenerative disease.
Yeah, there's that delineation between incurable optimism and toxic positivity. And he does a really good job in this book. I think that's one of the highlights is, like, I was reading it. Well, I listened to the audiobook, which he narrates, which was really moving to me. But because, he's slurring his words. It's clear it's sometimes a struggle to get through. Like he likes to use big words in his descriptions and whatnot. So it was moving listening to him work on that. He's like talking about some major stuff that impacted his life in a very negative way. But at the same time, like he's very humble and modest. He knows it's not just a woe is me situation, and he knows that a person in his position, he's got a lot of power and a lot of support and a lot of that he can still do regardless of his condition. So it's really cool, like listening to him like be optimistic but also be humble and realistic in the things he can do. Like spoilers, I guess he uses
Alex, we always spoil the whole thing in the first 5 minutes of an episode, so don't worry.
Yeah, he uses this book as a way to announce his second retirement from acting, as like the big conclusion that it comes to, and talking about like what comes next. And it's he starts getting into, like, you see this book came out in 2020 right before COVID hit, and you kind of see like what he's done since then, like huge philanthropic endeavors. And he's actually done more acting since he announced his retirement. He had a documentary. He was in Zootopia 2. He played guitar with Coldplay, which not too hard.
No, but I mean, considering like what he was saying in this book, where he couldn't even remember lines anymore. He was comparing, what movie was it with? It was relatively recent. I think it was right around COVID, right before COVID, where the actor was playing an actor in a Western movie, and he couldn't remember his lines.
Oh yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, and then he is able to eventually get, that movie give one of his best performances of his life, where everyone just like jaw dropped. But leading up to that point, he's struggling, and the self doubt of, hey, I should be able to do this. This is a nothing movie. Why can't I even recall a line? And Michael J. Fox, who basically said as a kid it was eidetic memory, where he read something once and he would memorize it for months and years. He could just on a dime just spit out lines.
Yeah, he's talking about when he did his sitcom in the 80s, Family Ties.
Yes, Family Ties.
When he did Family Ties, he could memorize 7 pages of dialogue just by reading it through once, and then he'd be good to go.
Yeah, the night before.
Yeah, and then fast forward 40 years, and this is something you see a lot of the time in Hollywood. Once the memory starts to go, that's when actors stop appearing and stuff. Like you see that with, what's his name? Cuckoo's Nest guy.
Cuckoo's Nest guy?
Yeah. Jack Nicholson.
Oh, yeah, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, like he retired, like he talked about starting to have memory issues, and then he stopped appearing in movies. And yeah, it's just like it's a common thing. And Fox says when the speech starts to go, something that he's struggled with a long time, and he was like his last few roles, he was playing lawyers, and he couldn't do lawyer talk anymore.
Yeah, he's like, I'm saying I never understood what I was saying before, but now might as well have been reading Latin.
Yeah, so he's like, it's hard to do designated survivor, doing all the legalese to unseat a president when you can't get the words out of your mouth, whether you can't remember it or your Parkinson's is affecting your speech so much. Because he's like, he still talks about like the symptoms. He's probably addressed in earlier books too, like the symptoms of Parkinson's, because it's more than just having tremors. It's a lot more.
Yeah, and he's saying that the tremors, what people see, that's not even the hard part. It's the stiffening of everything, where he can't do facial features. He can't change inflection in his voice. And yeah, his whole body's tremoring, but it's also the parts that aren't tremoring can't move. Like they're frozen.
Yeah, and like he's like talking about like when he falls and breaks his arm, like something as simple as walking through a doorway, which is a common thing for humans. You like walk through a doorway and you're like, why did I come into this room? But his is like that on crack. So he'll come through a doorway and just immediately lose his center of balance.
Yeah,
lose all his memory, and that's like what happened. He walked into the kitchen, and then like he went to turn left. His feet went one way, the rest of his body went the other way, and he fell and broke his arm.
And so my first note that I wrote for this book, which is within the first 4 pages, which it just, so we're reading this because of the Tom Felton memoir, and just being so annoyed with his inability to connect with his audience. And it said, in my note, it said, in this first 4 pages, this hit harder than the whole book from, I wrote Malfoy. But he sets up 3 things. Fox recognizes his fame, fortune, and his ability. He shows us his struggles in ways that, while he may be blessed in a sense because of his wealth, that he can still connect with the audience and bring himself down to our level. And then the fact that this, as we said earlier, this memoir has a purpose of him becoming a realistic optimist, and what does that mean, and the struggles to be able to keep that optimism while still being a realist and not becoming a negative person who just gives up and becomes bitter about life.
Yeah, exactly. And like later in the book, like you see him doing, like he's describing doing things that like, holy shit, I've done that when I've gone through hard things, like the sitting at home and just binge watching TV shows because you're too depressed to leave the house. Like it's like, yeah, he's insanely wealthy, and he was the same year he has major back surgery and breaks his arm. His whole family goes on an African safari.
Yeah, like I struggle with that too, Alex, all the time.
Yeah. I mean, he's got all the fuck you money in the world. He could easily just kind of like sink into it and be like, woe is me. And like stop trying and you can just coast off of what he did the first 20 years of his
Which
career.
is what Felton kind of did in his memoir. It was like, yeah, I got all the money in the world. I can just drink and smoke pot all day. But they say I have a alcohol problem.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, woe is me because I'm bored and people don't just let me go out day drinking all the time. Where this is like no, this is, I'm having real life struggles, and yeah, you can have all the money in the world, but at the end of the day, if you're trapped in your own body and you can't even talk to your loved ones, life is tough.
Yeah, and it's like the connections that Fox establishes throughout this book with his family and with his friends, like it's more real than anything Tom Felton said. Tom Felton gushes over every actor he worked with in the Harry Potter series, especially Emma Watson. He talks a lot about Alan Rickman, which I think he was mostly talking about Alan Rickman because that book came out right around the time Rickman died. And it's just sort of like you're just kind of using your friends to as a way to sell this book to your fans. Be like, oh, what was his interaction with Daniel? What was his interaction with Severus? What was Ray Fiennes really weird? And that kind of stuff. But Jay Fox, he humanizes everybody, even talking about his just golfing buddies with George Stephanopoulos and Harlan Coben. It's I feel a better connection between, I don't know, it's what do you call it when you're a disconnected but you're a fan but you feel a connection with the person that you're following. I forget that's called, but because they don't know I exist, but I still know they exist and I feel an attachment to them. Michael J. Fox does a really good job establishing that. I'm oh, I can kind of see the relationship between these three golfing buddies because they just, they're smacking the ball around, having a good time, and they're all really bad at the game. And it's fun and it's funny. And you don't really get that with what Tom Felton wrote.
Yeah, and he also is very honest in his self-reflection. And I got a quote here. It's about, he had just been diagnosed with Parkinson's and is still struggling with that. And his wife is coming to him saying, hey, sweetie, we should have more kids. And granted, so this is early 90s. So he's still at the peak of his career sort of thing. But he's looking at it, it's there's a lot going on. And so we'll get into it. I was traveling for work, but my isolation on the road was no more profound than my growing sense of isolation at home. I felt marginalized in a way, not understanding that I was instrument of my detachment. I was moody, confused about the status of our marriage, the direction of my career, and given my recent diagnosis, the future existence of a career at all. I mean, he's digging deep into his psyche here on this, really trying to get honest with the audience. And instead, that's not something you typically see in a actor's memoir. Because I've read a bunch. Who's the guy from Parks and Rec with the mustache?
Nick Offerman.
Yeah, Nick Offerman. I read his Without a Paddle or whatever.
Paddle Your Own Canoe.
Paddle Your Own Canoe.
Yeah, I read that one too.
And he was such an arrogant prick about the whole thing. And it's just dude, I get you worked hard to get where you're at, but it's you're just alienating the majority of your audience. And then I read Anna Kendrick's memoir, and it was kind of the same kind of song of, oh yeah, I'm just the greatest thing since anything, and let me tell you about my sex life and how great of an actress I am. Oh, the one movie that made me a household name, that was a terrible movie. I don't want to talk about it. It's but that's why these thousands of young women are picking up your book. It's because, hey, it's the girl that sings really well, and and she's pretty, and I want to be just like her. And then all you're talking about is, oh yeah, I like doing more. I'm more of an artiste.
Yeah, and then you get Michael J. Fox, where he's he does a little bit of that, but he's also having to continuously scale back his career, and he's managed to make some comebacks throughout the 2000s. After he retired, he became a much sought after character actor. A ton of guest spots in a lot of big shows.
Yeah, here's a quote about that. As an actor, here's how I see myself. I can portray any human being and some animals as long as they have Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, that was a good joke. You could tell he was proud of that joke when he was reading the audiobook. I remember watching him in Rescue Me.
Yeah.
He's playing a alcoholic paraplegic, and he's just off the walls crazy, and it's hysterical the entire time. He just completely owns that the episodes that he's in, and it's hilarious. It's like almost a shame he only had 5 episodes.
Yeah, well,
It's great.
but he says like, that was his first big kind of comeback of saying, hey, because Dennis Leary said, hey, come try this out. He's like, yeah, that would be a perfect opportunity, guest spot, and minimal work needed, but I can kind of ease myself back in and see if that's something I can do.
Yeah, he did. His first thing back ever was he did 2 episodes on Scrubs.
Okay, that was what it was. Yeah.
But yeah, they like he had a lot of connections, and like this goes to shows how beloved he is. Like he wasn't looking for work. People reached out directly to him and said, "We want you for this role." And,
yeah.
Like that's I don't know, just goes to show how likable he is, and like
and you can thank his wife Tracy for that, because I don't know, when COVID hit, he had a documentary come out and he talked about his his rising star kind of thing, and Tracy, his wife, was his one of his co-stars in his first sitcom there, and she hated him because he was such a insufferable asshole once Teen Wolf and Back to the Future came out.
Yeah, Michael J. Fox's 1985 is probably like one of the most successful years in an actor's career that you could have. It's like Jim Carrey's 1993, MJ's 95. Like it's like one of those years where it's just like you're in
multiple
blockbuster hits.
Two of the biggest movies ever, and then also in one of the most popular sitcoms at the same time.
Yeah, so he was doing pretty well. That's like the year he got the fuck you money. That's where he became a bankable A-list celebrity.
But she called him out on his bullshit, and because he was kind of infatuated with her already, he's like, oh yeah, I guess I am being an asshole. I better pull my shit together. And he kind of talks about it in the story about when he quit drinking. He's like, yeah, it wasn't really. He was at that like Felton level of, yeah, it's a problem, but still under controllable if you put your mind to it. And he's like, yeah, I polished off a 30 rack of PBRs, passed out on the couch, feel like shit, and Tracy comes in and is like, is this really how our life's going to be? And he's like, yeah, that day I dumped out all of our alcohol and I quit drinking.
Yeah, and that's the thing you got to watch out for. Like if they're angry at you and they're yelling at you, they're still trying to save it. If they're just bored with it, then yeah, you're in big trouble. So.
Yeah, but he was able to recognize like, oh crap, I'm about to lose my marriage. I got a kid that I barely pay attention to. Drowning my sorrows because I just got diagnosed with Parkinson's, and now they end up having twins for their second pregnancy, and he's just like, okay, I guess I need to clean up my act, because it's, again, he praises his wife for basically taking care of him. He's at one point in the book he says, for better or for worse, sickness and health, he's like, the majority of our marriages has been worse. I've been the worst side of it, and it's been sickness, and she stood in there with me for every second of our lives together. And he's like, yeah, without her, he's like, I would be nothing at this point. So very grateful to his wife and his family, because he's like, he praises his kids. I mean, he ended up having a fourth kid towards the end of his career, because his wife's like, you know what, I think we need another kid. I feel like there's still space in this house.
Yeah. You got to stop when they start outnumbering you. I don't know what the plan was there. But, no, and like it's easy to turn bitter towards people when like you're forced to be around them all the time. Like, because yeah, she's his wife, but also a major like caretaker in his life. So she gets a lot of say in what he can and can't do and things like that. And like she's apparently this guardian angel, because she always makes sure he feels included and makes sure he's taking care of himself and all these things. But yeah, it's like he's also like lamenting, like, I always have somebody watching. Like he's at the time of writing this book, when he's 58, he's at a point where he's just had major tumor removed from his back. He's at this point where
just from his back, from inside his spine.
Yeah, so he's recovering from a major, like he had to relearn how to walk.
Yeah,
and he's just like, the reason he fell and broke his arm was because he was essentially just dying for some alone time, because he hadn't had alone time in 6 months.
He had a person watching him all night. A medical person watching him all day for 6 months, where he couldn't go to the bathroom to take a dump by himself, which is, you just imagine, every time you want to go take a piss, someone's watching you, make sure you don't fall or do something you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, it's
people go crazy for that kind of thing, and that's just with cameras. People go crazy thinking that they're being watched all the time.
Yeah, and it's just like he has so many issues. Like sometimes his feet walk faster than his brain can keep up with, and he falls over. That's a daily thing. He falls over. And
yeah, because what we learn in this book is Parkinson's isn't so much, like we said, the trembling. It's the lack of communication between your brain and the rest of your limbs. So any of us, we don't have to look at our feet to know where they are in relative space. Our body can tell us that. When we start walking, our body's able to speak to itself. So we're not having to pay attention to how do I walk from point A to point B, navigating around a table, where he's literally having to watch himself walk, come up with a plan for every single step, come up with a plan of how to turn. And if he gets distracted, and because he is kind of an ADHD kind of brain, he's easily distractible. And with Parkinson's, his brain will move 1,000 miles an hour, then all of a sudden just turn to sludge at the drop of a dime. And all of a sudden his feet are moving faster than his upper body, or his feet just aren't moving anymore, but his upper body still thinks he's going full tilt.
Yeah, and he does a good job kind of foreshadowing the fall and like his distraction there, because like there's small things like where he's doing his exercises and his trainer is forcing him to recite like trivia questions while he's doing crunches and stuff, because he's to help him learn multitasking and to also keep his mind fresh while he's doing other things so he can focus regardless of what's happening around him. And that's like a special trick he has to learn. Then it also shows he's golfing with Nike socks, and Nike labels left and right on their socks, and he put on 2 left Nike socks, and he's focused on the ball, and then he like raises his club, he's like 2 left socks, and then shanks the ball into the woods.
I thought he shanked that ball and almost hit somebody in the parking lot.
Oh, yeah, he put it in the parking lot, that's right.
And he's like, oh, thank God I didn't damage their car, because it was like a Maserati kind of thing.
Yeah, but then he also, he hits the second shot straight down the fairway because he's able to focus on that one.
Yeah.
So it shows, if he can focus, he does really well. If he's distracted by anything, he falls, and that's, a lighthearted story, but then it comes back, he starts the book with the fall, but then it cycles back to the fall, and it's talking about walking through a doorway, and then just being distracted by that and falling over.
But like we said, it's amazing how many people, good people, he's brought around him. He's got his aide that just kind of takes care of him, on his day-to-day, his personal aide that takes care of his day-to-day life, who is devoted to him. So he's got his 3 daughters and his son are devoted to him. He's got dozens and dozens of friends that are always checking in on him and saying, hey, let's go do something and, get out there and be part of the world. He's got the other Parkinson's people that he's met through his organization that, he towards the end, he's talking about this one kid who ends up getting a diagnosis the same age Fox did, and, how that kid is giving him encouragement to continue on with his life at the top capacity, just because this kid's so full of optimism himself, and they're feeding off of each other.
Yeah, and it's you see that too. The book ends with, or one of the endings towards the end is
it's like the end of Lord of the Rings, where it just keeps going and going.
Yeah, he recovers from the broken arm and the back surgery, and he had broken his arm on a day when he was supposed to go film a cameo in a movie, and he missed that filming day, but they still months and months later reassembled all the actors just so he could film his cameo in that movie.
Yeah, he just felt so touched that there would be, and it wasn't fully we did it just for you. It was we had to do a reshoot anyways, but since we're all here, we really wanted you to be a part of this, because it was a callback to a Back to the Future thing.
Yeah, it was a one of those fourth wall jokes.
Yeah,
he's playing he plays a professor who's skeptic about time travel.
Yeah. And he gives the professors one of his famous lines from Back to the Future.
Time travel, great Scott.
Yeah. So, but again, it's just the people he's able to surround himself with. It's amazing that for all his terrible luck, and then he gets kind of an awakening in his trip to Africa, because he realizes there's 3 kinds of fear, and I can read that quote. It's a little bit longer quote, but give me one sec. Okay, here we go. So I forgot my book at home. We're in New Hampshire here. And so Becky took a picture of the pages, but this page got cut off in one corner. So I'll do the best I can. These 3 vignettes from my trip to Africa represent 3 fears that resonate through every phase of life. There's the leopard in the tree viewed from an armada of SUVs, a real danger, but it's contained. If you're careful, you'll survive it, maybe even learn something. More dangerous is the fear that you can't see, but into it is somewhere close, ready to pounce. What you can't see may still hurt you, or at the very least cause you to experience uncertainty and dread. The third fear is an innate minefield that you traverse as you identify, accept, and process truths, such as the inexplorable advance of middle age and beyond. It's the realization that we all have an expiration date, secret but certain. That's life. The leopard you see, the one you don't see, and the ones that prowl stealthily through your dark places. The first leopard for me up to this point is Parkinson's. I know its habits. I know its territory. I know its cruelty. I know when it's safe to get out of the Jeep and when it's not. The second is the leopard I don't see. It's that gut feeling that something is wrong, very wrong. Something is out there waiting to pounce. No warning, no negotiation, no accommodation. This foreboding is a recent development, something that is common for many of us in middle age, and which has intensified for me with the discovery of and removal of the spine tumor. Then, with my fall in the kitchen, a new existential crisis emerged. This third fear is manifest in my golem-like scrambling along the length of the tent. It's the unknown danger that paralyzes. Darkness, confusion, solitude, vulnerability. Essentially blindfolded, grasping for a familiar shape, a handhold that is stable and can be trusted, but finding only the temporary and unstable as I negotiate my way, pleading my case before gravity. The stakes are high. Not only could I damage myself, I could harm others who share my space. I pray that I find my way, however unsure I am on the path. Sometimes the voices that guide me through my night walking are interrupted by Tracy's soft whisper, "Honey, be careful." "Good idea, sweetie. I'll try to be careful. Go back to sleep." In that same nothing to fear speech, Franklin D. Roosevelt also said, "Only a foolish optimist can deny the dark realities of the moment." I accept the optimism part, but now I admit to its foolishness.
Yeah, it's very, it's kind of the sum of everything that he's talked about up until that point. And it's funny, he's like well, not really funny, but the most dangerous thing he does while on African safari, looking at these huge predators and whatnot, is trying to make his way to the bathroom at night.
Yeah, because they, the 3 stories are they find a leopard in a tree eating a gazelle, and then their Jeep breaks down a little bit later, and they're in a different part of the savannah, and they're looking at trees that look exactly like the tree that the leopard before was in, but they can't see the leopards, and it's getting to be dusk when the leopards are most active, and they're like, there could be leopards in those trees, and Michael J. Fox is like, I'm the slowest one in the party. I will be the reason I save my children because I get taken out first.
Yeah, his kids were joking with him like, yeah, we need you there because we don't have to outrun the leopard, we just have to outrun you.
But at that moment he's like, no, this might have to be what it is, but as long as we stay in the Jeeps, we will be safe. And then at one point in the night, he realizes that he's in an unfamiliar area and he could crash any moment. And he had just recovered from his back surgery and broken arm, having to relearn to walk twice because he had relearned to walk from his back surgery, but when he broke his arm, he had to relearn to walk again because the way he walks, he uses every body part to stay balanced. And because he had a giant cast on his arm, that changed the way he had to move his body. So he's like, he was like, I literally can't get from my bed in the tent to outside the tent without possibly crashing and burning. And if, say, a leopard broke into the camp, I can't move. So,
and even something as simple as bumping a chair on your way by, like that could possibly take him out.
Yeah, that could literally kill him.
Yeah, he could fall and hit his head. A lot of bad shit could happen just from getting up and shuffling to the bathroom in a home you're not familiar with.
Yeah. And he had several chapters about talking about wanting to hug his mother, who's in her 90s, and frail as frail can be. And because he can't control his body, he's terrified of actually touching her or being within 5 feet of her, because he could literally kill her just because of his body spasming or not obeying its commands at the right moment. And then watching his son hug his mother and being able to do all the things that he wishes he could still do. And having that little bit of jealousy, but then saying like, man, this is rough. All I want to do is hug my own mother before she leaves this earth, because it's not much longer, and I can't even trust myself to touch her.
And he spends a long time like he's like bragging, but also at the same time lamenting about the things he used to be able to do physically. Like he had that Spin City pilot where he got to like do a front flip onto a bed and rip his pants off midair and land next to his co-star, and like or all this like skateboarding that he did for Back to the Future, and like he was an athletic guy.
Well, watching the documentary, he's talking about basically from the moment he was born, he was a runner. He just ran everywhere, and he would, in the town he grew up in, people would see 6-year-old Michael Fox running 5 miles from home, just running around like crazy and calling up his mom. Yeah, he just ran by the house. We'll let you know when he's coming home.
Yeah, and just like even when he's 58 and writing this book, like obviously when you're 58 you're gonna lose some mobility, but he's essentially got the body of his mom's probably a faster mover than he is, even though she's 90 and he's 50. It's like he's a shambling old man, essentially. Kind of picture that, and then just having to kind of contend with that, because you go from doing front flips onto a bed in front of a live studio audience to worrying if you're gonna trip and fall and possibly die.
Yeah, but so I mean, that's basically the gist of this book. I mean, it's you got any more of the stories you want to add in, Alex? Anything?
I think that covers like the real heart of the book.
Yeah.
There are a few sections where I'm like, oh, okay, your editor wanted you to beef these books up.
Yeah, towards the end, you could definitely tell he was putting a little bit of filler in. I thought his trip to Bhutan was really cool.
Yeah, that was a good way of showing the foot problem too, with like your feet moving faster than your body, because he fell and like hurt his finger really bad, and then that later on that's how he broke his arm. His feet went up from under him.
Yeah, but I mean, he was talking about how he had one of those rare moments in Parkinson's where his symptoms went almost completely away, and he was able to go on a big hike that he didn't think he was ever going to be able to do on this most beautiful country he's ever been to. And he's talking to the minister of one of the ministers of that country, who also has Parkinson's, I believe. And Michael's feeling bad because all his symptoms have gone away magically. But then he goes to India to get this finger looked at, because happens to be a doctor on the plane as they're leaving Bhutan, and says, you need to go to a hospital or you're going to lose your hand.
Yeah, because
he hurt his finger with his wife's ring on it and refused to take it off, and it swelled so bad that the ring was becoming engulfed.
Yeah, it's becoming a tourniquet, and it was like cutting off all circulation.
Yeah.
So they had to essentially cut his ring in half.
Yeah, and he goes to the hospital and he sees a older gentleman with his family around him, and they're all crying, and he's like, and he get this big thing about, would this guy want to trade whatever is ailing him with what I have, or would he want to keep him? He kind of jokes to himself, whatever he has can't be that bad unless if it's a heart attack. And as he's leaving the hospital, he asks the doctor, hey, what happened to that guy? Oh, he had a heart attack and he died. And it's just like, oh, I guess he probably would have traded what I had, and I wouldn't, but he's like, but he had basically said, compared to what most other people's ailments are, he would take his diseases over what someone else had, just because he's familiar with his diseases and he sees what other people suffer through and say, that seems way harder than what I have. I can at least deal with what I have.
Yeah, it's a big part of his humility is he's able to put that perspective in there. Like it's like I've got this massive support structure and all the care that money can buy, and like I have learned to manage this. Like even as I'm slowly degenerating, I'm able to do things where I'm degenerating in a manageable way. So like I know when it's time to hang up my golf clubs, because I've done everything in the world possible to be able to play golf. I can no longer play golf.
But one of the last times he played golf after his injuries, he's telling his wife, I'm playing golf. This is the most amazing feeling. His wife's like, oh, you had a good game? He's like, no, it was absolutely terrible. But I'm outside with my friends swinging a golf club.
Yeah, for like the first time in years, yeah. At that point. And so, yeah, it's like he knows he's never going to be good at golf, but he enjoys golf, and like I don't know,
And I think he enjoys just being out there with people, with his friends. And again, he had been basically a captive, a prisoner to his house and his family, but with the people that he could not leave his home without assistance. And he's now out playing golf. He's out able to walk in the greens and be outside and just go back to what he considered normal before his 2 major surgeries.
And like there's probably going to be a time in his life when he becomes completely housebound and like can't leave his home safely, and it'll probably happen at a time in his life when most other people would still be able to go out and do things.
Yeah. Well, just as he's talking about being in a wheelchair bound, and his acceptance of that by the end of, because at first he's saying how much he hated it, how much he didn't want anything to do with it, and then by the end he's like, this is the freedom I have. If I want to be able to go out, I'll take it because it's better than being stuck in the house.
Yeah, exactly. And he hated having people push him in the chair. He hated trying to learn how to use the walker. He hated using the quote-unquote speed cane with the 4 prongs at the bottom. Like, it's all just...
But then he realized how hard it was to navigate with those. He's like, how do these old people do it and I can't?
Yeah.
It's kind of like skiing when people are like, how can that little kid ski so good and I can't?
Yeah. Well, the little kid doesn't have 200 pounds to fucking shift around.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's doing everything he can to fight the disease, but he knows in the end it's gonna win. But he can stave it off as long as he can by doing what he's doing, and like that's kind of, it arrives at that comfortable feeling of like when he first retired. It was sort of like a gut reaction, like it's like I've got to the point where I can't like act anymore. I gotta stop. And this time it's more of like a resolve, like I'm making this decision because now I really can't do it. And it's like he stretched another 20 years out of his career, despite what he was going through. And it's kind of amazing that he was able to do even that, because I think a lot of people with Parkinson's would stop and just kind of let the disease take them, whereas was able to fight it for an extra 2 decades.
Yeah. So your final thoughts on the book, Alex?
Like I said, it had some filler. He had a whole chapter just talking about his dogs. I'm like, yeah, you threw that in there, okay. And then he also was he bounced back to playing his character in Family Ties, being a diehard Reagan fan, even though he's a lifelong Democrat. And it's like,
yeah, he did get. You could tell he was trying not to do politics, but he couldn't help himself to not put politics in there.
Yeah, he was able to, like, he mentioned Trump without gagging, so it's like, okay. It was like talking about like George Stephanopoulos. Like, it was like, oh yeah, he goes from having dinner with Trump to hitting golf course with me, and it's like, oh, that's fun. But yeah, he talked about meeting Reagan and stuff, and how he's like, oh, he's actually a lot nicer than the TV portrayed him, or how he's portrayed in the media, and it's like kind of goes to, and like his Nancy Reagan was a lot like supported some Democratic agendas, and he's like, oh, okay,
a lot of good Democratic causes and whatnot. And
yeah, so it's sort of like it was just like a little side lesson of like, oh, not everything is as it seems, and like these people weren't the demons that they were portrayed in the media that I consumed, and yada yada. Mm-hmm. There's like a little bit of tie-in with that, like saying like Parkinson's isn't a death sentence or that sort of thing, but other than that, I think it's fantastic. I think both you and I had that similar feel where it's like, oh, this book is very moving. It's touching. It's a good portrayal of realistic optimism. Like, yeah, life will get you in the end, but you did great things. You were able to do great things while you were sick, and in the future, you are still going to be able to do great things. It's just going to be a lot different. It'll take longer. It'll be harder, but you can still do it.
Yeah, I think for a third memoir, this is probably about as good as it can get. I would love to read his first one to see kind of how that one, he did it that one. I mean, he is a talented writer. I don't know if this was ghostwritten or if he actually did it. I feel like enough of it, he's enough of his humor in it. My guess is he actually did write it, or at least did if he had a ghostwriter, it was a very good ghostwriter that spent a lot of time with him.
Yeah, because like Tom Felton's, I think our big thing was like, this felt like he sat down for a 4-hour interview, and the guy was like asking leading questions, like, tell me a story about Alan Rickman, tell me a story about Maggie Smith,
Yeah.
But this one is actually like, yeah, he's like bouncing all around the portions of his life, and he's able to tie it all into this one time, like this specific time in his life that he's been going through in the moment. So
yeah, but reading his first memoir, I think would be really helpful to see get those backstories that of his early career and the beginnings of Parkinson and what he felt then, and then comparing it to now.
I was also wondering, like, I got to a point in the book where I'm like, is he going to talk about the sitcom that he tried back in 2014? And then he actually like got to that. He kind of glossed over that because that was a colossal fail on his part because he agreed to 22 episodes when he clearly was not physically capable of doing a sitcom like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he took the full blame for it though too. He's like he glossed over. He says, "Yeah, that was on me. I bit off more than I could chew, and I failed the show."
Yes, that's an interesting show too because I looked it up because I was doing a little research on his career while I was reading the book, and like 7 of those episodes never got aired anywhere but Australia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was canceled already, but they were gonna just burn off the episodes. But then the Winter Olympics hit.
Yeah.
And so they're like put releasing it on hold, and then they just never re-released it after the Olympics.
I wonder if you could still find them if it would be any good, because I mean, my understanding was it was good. He just couldn't keep up to the demand.
Yeah, it's you'd think like doing a sitcom is like not the hardest thing in the world. You lose your line, you just look over, the guy's got a cue card there. But at the same time, it's very strict schedules, and you're working 12-hour days.
Yeah, and it's literally you do one episode a week. Where the script writers are usually get the scripts out by Sunday so that the actors can read it. So on Monday they can go through a reading. The script writers can make any edits. So Tuesday the actors can do another script reading. Where Wednesday then they go on stage and start blocking it out and doing it. So then Thursday and Friday they can actually film it. And then that's just production. That's not post production at all. But then rinse and repeat. So the writers had to have the scripts for the next episode ready by Sunday so the actors could start memorizing. And Michael is saying he just can't memorize lines anymore. So he's what should be an easy take is taking him multiple tries. And he's like yeah, it's throwing everyone's schedule off. Nobody, it's throwing everyone's acting off because it's like I just can't keep up.
Yeah, it's like knowing he has Parkinson's is different from actually like seeing Parkinson's at work. And so like putting himself in a sitcom with a bunch of people that might be familiar with him but don't know him personally, like them actually like seeing him shake and struggle and get through, like, yeah, it impacts the entire show. So he was very open about that. Like, yeah, I was winning Emmys, getting nominated. I had a long run on The Good Wife. So he was in a bunch of episodes for that. So he thought he could handle a sitcom, and he really couldn't at that point.
Yeah.
And, like, it's kind of funny to tie that into the Reagan stuff, because Reagan apparently had requested to be on an episode of Family Ties. And they're like, only if he commits essentially an entire week of his life to just being in one scene of the show.
Yeah, and
it's like
he's the president of the United States. He doesn't have time for that.
He's got to come to the read-through. He's got to do the rehearsals. He's got to do the dress rehearsal. He's got to do, like, all the blocking. Yeah. He's got to film it in front of a live studio audience, and then he's got to do some of the post-production stuff as well for reshoots. And they're like, okay, never mind, he won't be on the show.
So we've burned most of the questions I have for this show, for this show. So, but I got a couple here still for you, Alex. How does Fox portray parenthood while managing serious health challenges?
He covers it, a really wide span of it, as he goes everything from kind of lamenting that the first 3 years of his son's life he was Miller time.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of like lamenting his regret over drinking so much when his kid was so little and at a very young, impressionable age. He kind of talks about like the view of being a dad with Parkinson's and like fathering children, and people asking him kind of insensitive questions like aren't you worried your kids are going to have Parkinson's? And he's got to kind
explain it's not a genetic disease. And
he's just like, no, and neither should you, which is a good answer. Yeah. And it's respects to the person, even though they were kind of less than respectful towards you. And then just also the
fact that his kids are taking care of him at 58.
Yeah, similar things like that. Like he was talking like another person who had Parkinson's that he was talking to, and the fact that that guy was trying to hold his kid while walking down a flight of stairs, and he fell while holding his child. It's sort of like, yeah, you have to make concessions to keep your family safe, and like that's a huge thing. Like he can't even hold his own child for fear of dropping him from his own clumsiness.
And again, his kids are literally taking care of him at 58, and they're in college. They're college aged. His youngest daughter was still in high school, and basically they're his keepers as much as his wife Tracy was. And it's like, this isn't fair to them. They have lives of their own.
Yeah, he's like, they're trying to, like, one of them's trying to make it as a dancer, one of them's trying to get through high school and get into college, and like his son's works at a very busy, what does he do, advertising, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. But yeah, just like a very busy industry. So like they're pushing through their own lives, but also, yeah, they have to check in on dear old dad and make sure he's feeling as loved and as needed as he is.
If Fox wrote another memoir in 10 years, what would you hope he explores next?
I think it's good that he does these check-ins. Like, he is essentially the face of Parkinson's. Like, he is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he's.
Do you know anyone that has Parkinson's, Alex, or ever met someone?
I have never met anyone with Parkinson's.
Yeah, I never worked with him closely, but I had met him a few times. A guy at work had it, and they finally had to let him go when he lit himself on fire one too many times using a welder.
Yeah, that'll. That's trying to hold on when you should be sitting back and reflecting. Like,
yeah,
am I actually helping by lighting myself on fire, or am I a walking hazard? But it's like, he can like, he's got plenty of laughable stories, J. Fox does, but at the same time, like, it's also like really hard on him. You can tell. But
yeah.
Oh God, your story made me forget the question.
What do you hope in the next memoir in 10 years?
I'd like to hear more about like what he's been doing since then, because he's made a few appearances. Like I said, he performed with Coldplay on stage, actually playing guitar and doing some cool stuff. He was able to do some voice roles. He was in Zootopia 2. He had that documentary about his life come out in 2023. And so yeah, even though he's retired, he's still very busy and still very active, and being the face, like being brave enough to be the face of a disease where everybody is going to be watching you because you're the guy who's spread out on the chair, so you have as many points of contact as possible so you don't fall and you're still shaking spastically. Like, it's a disease where people are going to stare at you, and it's a hard position to put yourself into willingly, and he does that. So I want to learn more about his optimism as he hits another point in his life, because he's middle-aged going into old age at this point. So I want to hear more about, like, what's it like being in your now late, he's 64 now.
Yeah, when he hits his late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, what's it like then?
Because then he's officially going to be, getting the AARP magazines going in his mailbox. So,
that could be his fourth career line, is doing those commercials.
Yeah. He did have, like I said, he had a book come out just last year, but that's all just Back to the Future stories.
Yeah, cash in on that. I mean, I don't blame him cashing on that.
It sounds like he did have a co-writer on that one, so
yeah,
maybe he's getting to a point where typing is difficult.
Well, I think he probably dictates a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's kind of like Terry Pratchett had to do that for his last like 4 or 5 books that he published, because he had dementia, and it was a weird version of dementia where he didn't just forget things, he couldn't see things. So like, say he would be drinking a cup of tea, because he's British, he'd put his mug down and he'd look over there and he'd look at the table where his hand is, and he would not be able to see the mug. It would just look like the table with nothing on it. And he says, I know there's a mug there. If I move my hand, I'll knock it over. But he could not see it. He would try to put on a pair of pants, and he would forget what the legs were, and he could not put on a pair of pants. So he'd be at his typewriter, because he liked to use the old-fashioned typewriters, and he'd look at keys, and the S key would just disappear. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 5 hours. There'd be no S key. And he just could not, he could physically not get himself to push that key. So he eventually said he had to go to dictating. So I imagine Michael J. Fox kind of does that now, even though like you said, he does slur, so I'm sure the word recognition software struggles with that even. But
yeah, I mean, he can still like talk to somebody who can take.
Yeah, there's that too.
That's what John Milton, the poet, was blind, so like Paradise Lost was dictated. Like,
yeah,
you can still make good art and tell good stories.
Yeah.
Through dictation. So it's if he needs to dictate, if it needs to be ghostwritten, I think that's understandable.
And again, I think he is, even if these are ghostwritten, which I don't know. I could see him writing it. I could see him, paying someone to write it for him. I think he is putting the effort in to make it a quality product.
Yes, he's definitely more involved with these memoirs than Tom Felton was, or like Anna Kendrick or Nick. Like I think Nick Offerman probably wrote that book because I read Paddle Your Own Canoe,
Yeah.
and he had like a whole tour about it, like
Yeah.
did a whole comedy show based on that book. But yeah, it's I think he just kind of like wrote it, sent it out, maybe had somebody else do the edits for him and stuff like that. Because I mean, he's when you're a Hollywood actor, like you do have a lot of downtime probably. At the same time, you are busy like fielding phone calls, auditioning, and like you're always like
that
working
and
on a job.
just trying to stay fit, because you listen to these what these actors have to do just to continue looking exactly the same or as close to the same as they did the previous year, because that's what people expect.
Yeah, like Chris Hemsworth's workout routine is hours and hours, and like I think Mark Wahlberg posted his workout routine, and he spends way more hours in the gym than you would ever expect a normal person to. Like it's more than just a 3 a.m. workout. He's constantly
Just
pumping
3 a.m.
iron.
workout followed up by a 5 a.m. workout, followed up by a 10 a.m. workout. A lunch the size, basically two sticks of celery, followed by a 1 o'clock workout.
Then like dinner is you eat your body weight in protein.
Yeah. How does this memoir compare to the other two memoirs we've read and other memoirs you've read in the past?
My memoir reading is limited.
So we know you've read Tom Felton,
Jenny Lawson,
Jenny Lawson, and what's his face there?
Nick Offerman.
Nick Offerman. Have you read any others?
I actually took a memoir class, like a memoir writing class. We read a few memoirs back in college. I read Without a Map, which is about a woman who got pregnant as a teenager and gave her kid up for adoption, and it's kind of her life after doing that. Mm-hmm. And then I read Black Dog of Fate, which was a Armenian man discovering about the coming of age and learning about the Armenian genocide, and how that learning about that atrocity changed his life, and he turned him into a life of advocacy and.
So a couple of heavy reads then.
Yeah, heavier reads. Black Dog of Fate was really good. I didn't like Without a Map though.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it. It's just sort of, I couldn't get into it. It was kind of bland for what it was. Could have been better.
Yeah. So how would you rank this book in this field of memoirs you've read?
Yeah. In my limited scope, this is probably my favorite memoir I've read. I tend to avoid the celebrity memoirs because, like you said, they're vapid and surface level only, shallow. This one actually had some depth and some things that a normal layman can relate to and find a connection with. Because they always talk about I have this truly charmed life, and whether they had to work hard for it or their mom just took them to auditions and they got the role like Tom Felton did.
Yeah.
It's it's really hard to be you are just looking at somebody who's on a completely different planet from you. Whereas Michael J. Fox, he started at that, but he's also this he's portraying himself, but he seems like a very humble guy, and it feels actually real and genuine to actually listen to him.
It feels like if you met him in person and he was able to give you the time, because he does mention at one point that he can't talk to people when he's walking down a sidewalk because he will fall and hurt himself and possibly someone around him. So he seems very standoffish, and then on top of it, because of his facial features freezing and the way he talks, people find him very standoffish. But I think if you were able to sit down with him and just have a conversation, he'd just be like any other guy, I think.
Yeah, it's a memoir you can actually, a celebrity memoir you can actually learn something from, mm-hmm. and get a unique point of view, because he does have a unique perspective, and not just being a Hollywood elite, but also battling something that a lot of people go through, and kind of taking up the mantle for those people. So he's I think he's not really portraying himself as this heroic person, but he really kind of is. He's someone that a lot of people can probably look up to. You can't really look up to Anna Kendrick. She's just a pretty face on the TV screen, whereas Michael J. Fox is actually he's a handsome face on the TV screen, but he's actually also doing things that in the public eye, and you can really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I guess I've read a few more memoirs than you have, not especially more the celebrity kind. I read Stephen Fry's 3 memoirs, and like I said, this is number 3 for Michael J. Fox. I'm curious to see what number 1 was like, because I ranked this up here with Jenny Lawson's first one and Stephen Fry's first memoirs as probably top higher tier memoirs for celebrity-esque people.
And whether Michael Michael J. Fox like wrote it or had it ghostwritten. Like you can say Jenny Lawson though. She definitely wrote that.
She definitely wrote it. And Stephen Fry definitely wrote his.
Yeah.
Because he is a legitimate author also, and but
he's a comedy writer.
He's a comedy writer. Yeah, he writes. His living is writing, is acting, but it is actually primarily writing.
Yeah, he's written tons of mythology books. He's
written episodes for shows.
Yeah, he's very busy. Like
he writes full on novels, as we read one that Alex hated.
Yeah, I think when he was on like Blackadder even in the 80s, I think he was writing some of those episodes.
Oh, he was writing a lot of them. I mean, they would say, what's the big one that came out of that? The big comedian.
Rowan Atkinson?
Yeah, Rowan Atkinson. He said he would say how that guy was the true genius that wrote some of the best material. But yeah, Stephen Fry would be writing episodes and writing his parts, and he did the bit of Fry and Laurie. He was writing a lot of that. But so Jenny Lawson and Stephen Fry, their later memoirs are definitely diminishing returns, where they just ran out of stuff to write. And that's, again, I think Michael J. Fox, if we had read his first memoir, I think it probably would have. It could have gone you can go probably one of two ways. It would either be so amazing that it's like it puts everyone else to all these other more famous memoirs to shame, or it would be more like the Anna Kendrick. This was just really great. I'm awesome kind of thing, but still have enough humility of I got Parkinson's, so it kind of ended my career a little sooner than I would have liked, kind of thing.
Yeah, and like I remember you telling me about like Dustin Pedroia's memoir. And it's like literally just all like, I worked hard and I had heart, so I succeeded. And it's sort of like, oh god, just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that was a rough one. I forgot I read that one until you just mentioned it.
It just popped in my head. Yeah, I never even read it, and you just told me about it. I'm like, okay, I'm never gonna read that book.
Yeah, and I like Dustin Pedroia, but that memoir kind of ruined it for me. Wanting to cheer for him. I mean, I was already kind of annoyed with him with his inability to step up as a leader in the team. And then I read that, and I'm like, this guy's just a arrogant asshole.
Yeah, just it's like, yeah, like literally everyone on your team is working hard. There's a million people who busted their ass to get into the MLB that didn't make it in baseball, and like they all had heart and everything. It's not like you weren't.
They just didn't have the lucky breaks. Essentially, is what it comes down to. It's they tweak that muscle just wrong, and then they become injury prone. Because Dustin Pedroia did it late enough in his career.
Yeah, it's like his legacy was already set by the time he got hurt.
Yeah.
It's usually how careers end, is you got hurt.
Yeah. But I thought, like we said, this story, Fox kind of ran out of material by the end, and you could definitely see the filler. So I think that does make this suffer a little bit, but it's definitely up there in the one of the better memoirs I've ever read.
Yeah, and like it's just, it's not really like, I wouldn't say just pure filler. It's always fun to hear somebody talk about their hit show or whatever. But
yeah, but like you said, like with the dog.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, or there was a couple of stories towards the end that I was glossing over because I'm like, I have no interest in this anymore. And
he was. It took him a while to start saying what he needed to say, and then he kept going on long after he'd already said it. So
yeah,
let's see. Like, and it's still like fun stuff. He's still a beloved actor and icon. So like, I'll learn about his life. There's like fun little trivia nuggets and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the title of this book, Alex. No Time Like the Future by Michael J. Fox. So definitely worth the read. I know we probably told the majority of the good stuff in it, but it's definitely hearing his voice in your head, or as you're reading it, or as Alex literally heard his voice reading it to him.
I highly recommend the audiobook. He does a great job.
It's definitely worth picking up. Let's see, what book are we reading next, Alex? It's your pick.
Yep. So the 5th will be a regularly scheduled. We will be doing Mystic River by Dennis Lehane.
Yeah. So remember, we post twice monthly on the 5th and the 20th. The 20th is always the bonus. You don't know where you're going to get episode, where the 5th is me and Alex have picked our 8 books for the 8 books each for the season. So make sure you're subscribed and got the little notifications to make sure you don't miss an episode. We are on all the major podcasts out there. We're on YouTube, audio only. If you're willing to film us and do all the editing, we'll bring you on. But you're going to have to go by Alex's schedule because that's how it works. Yeah. Let's see. We have an Instagram at Kendall Bookworms. You can DM us there. We have an email, kendallbookworms@gmail.com. You can get a hold of me there and give us ideas for bonus episodes that you want to hear us talk about. Or if you're an author, we would love to interview you and your writing process and how you got published and all that jazz. We love talking to local authors. So
if you didn't like our review of a book and you want to argue with us about it, let us know. We'll let you on the show. We'll have a hearty debate.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. We're on Facebook. I have a Medium and Substack that is for books that I read that are not covered on this podcast. Remember, if any of these books on Medium gets 100 reads, Alex will have to read that book, and we will discuss that book as a bonus episode. Yeah. Alex also has a Medium now.
Yeah, and likewise, if any of my books get 100 reads, Joe will be forced to read that book.
Please don't read his Medium. At least when it gets close to 100 reads, just stop reading it.
Yeah, I do weird smut only reviews, so it's a good time. Let's see, we're doing this even before the Medium has been launched. However, there should be some good reviews on there, so go check it out.
Alex also has 2 books for sale right now on Amazon. The link will be in the description. What are your books, Alex?
We got The Destroyer and Paul Plimpton versus Ragnarok.
Yeah, so definitely check those out. They're definitely worth the read, especially since he re-edited them and made all the grammar mistakes go away.
Yeah, at least most of them.
Most of them, yeah.
It's much more, it flows much better.
Yeah, he didn't hire someone to do the editing, so there's still a few mistakes in there, but...
Yeah, it's self-published. What are you going to do?
Yeah. I believe that's all, Alex.
All right. Well, then, tune in for our next regularly scheduled episode. That was... No Time Like the Future by Michael J. Fox. No, you laughed. Now we have to keep that long pause in there.
And I'm editing it, so it will stay there.
Great. But yeah, tune in next time for Mystic River. And until then, I'm Alex.
And I'm Joe.
And this has been Bookworms.
Out.